Thank you, Senator. Senator Roberts.
Thank you. Senator Thorpe is calling for a treaty as a matter of urgency. A treaty between which parties? Who would represent Aboriginal people? What would be in the treaty? Billions in compensation and reparations, perhaps. The white and black Aboriginal industry already receives billions of dollars in grants and projects. Even if one had been considered in the early days of settlement, it could not have been completed as there was no representative Aboriginal leader. There was no means of establishing representation of widely distributed tribes of Aboriginal people across the vast continent of Australia. It was impossible. Some tribal groups were simply unknown to the others. There was no universal legal system in place when Europeans settled Australia. A treaty is a legal arrangement between parties authorised to represent their side. Treaties are a two-way street. Each party would agree to do or refrain from doing certain things. The process is essentially contractual. Senator Thorpe has indicated that a treaty should address historic systematic injustices. How does she see this as a uniting process? It's not reasonable or logical to try to punish later generations for perceived historical injustice to the ancestors of Aboriginal people. There's no doubt that injustices occurred on both sides during the opening up of the inland as settlers pushed into the interior and developed Australia. Australia was not won as the spoils of a war. Is this treaty to be part of the BLAK sovereignty agenda that Senator Thorpe has been pushing since leaving the Greens? Or is this part of the Greens' globalist agenda? According to some reports, the treaty is stage 2 of a three-stage process linked to getting the voice up, and then the rewriting of Australian history from the radical socialist point of view. Most Aboriginals have never heard of BLAK sovereignty, and the concept of a treaty is only the language of the socialist far-left elite and academics pushing for the voice. Aboriginal people never formally united in exercising exclusive possession of the entirety of Australia, and Aboriginal sovereignty can't be ceded as it did not exist after 1788. The High Court held in Love v Commonwealth in 2020 that First Nation sovereignty did not persist after the British Crown's assertion of sovereignty in 1788. This confirmed the decision made in Mabo No. 2 in the High Court. Treaties in other countries were possible because the Indigenous Party was a united nation. That has never been the case in Aboriginal Australia. A treaty binding Australia with First Nations people is not viable. It is not based on law, it is divisive. Instead, we need to unite as one country.
Senator Shoebridge.